Talia was born into one of the most revered families in Zithari society, a race defined by their cold logic and rigid hierarchy. Her upbringing was steeped in privilege, surrounded by opulence, and the unyielding expectations of maintaining her family's status. The Zithari valued order above all, and any deviation from their strict societal norms was met with harsh consequences. Talia's family, once celebrated for their political influence, made a critical misstep, a failed maneuver in the council that led to their disgrace. Overnight they went from being at the pinnacle of power to being the embodiment of failure. Stripped of their titles and wealth, Talia's family was cast out, and with them, Talia herself. Sent to a barren, backwater planet, far from the center of Zithari civilization, she found herself alone and vulnerable in a world that cared nothing for her former status. The stark contrast between her previous life and her new reality was jarring. The harsh environment offered little in the way of comfort or resources, and she quickly learned that survival was a brutal game in which she had little experience. Gone were the luxuries she once took for granted. Now, she scavenged for food, fought for shelter, and faced the cold indifference of those around her. As days turned into weeks, Talia's situation grew increasingly desperate. She realized that the Zithari's rigid hierarchy had no mercy for the fallen. Once disgraced, there was no path back to honor within their system. Her logic-driven society had taught her that survival was for the strong, and strength came from alliances, not sentiment. It was this realization that sparked a plan, born out of sheer necessity and desperation. There was a human on this planet, a mechanic named Marcus Reed, whom the Zithari might consider inferior, but Talia knew better. Humans were unpredictable, resourceful, and most importantly, skilled in ways that could be of use to her. Marcus was known for his technical prowess, able to repair and build machinery that even the Zithari struggled to understand. Talia's mind raced with possibilities. Perhaps, if she could convince Marcus to join forces with her, they could find a way to restore her family's power. But the Zithari's disdain for humans made this a delicate proposition. She knew she had little to offer, no wealth or influence left to her name. The only card she had to play was herself. If she could propose a marriage, a union of convenience rather than love, it might provide the stability and partnership both of them needed. It was a drastic plan, one that would have been unthinkable just a few months ago, but now, it seemed to be the only way forward. Talia had always been taught to view humans as lesser beings, but desperation had a way of reshaping one's perspective. She steeled herself for what was to come, knowing that her survival, and perhaps even her family's redemption, hinged on the decision she was about to make. Talia moved through the dusty streets of the small settlement, her once elegant stride now a careful, deliberate motion to avoid drawing unwanted attention. She had learned quickly that even here, among the scraps of civilization, she was a target. But today, she had a purpose. She had tracked Marcus Reed to a rundown workshop on the edge of town, a place that seemed as unremarkable as the man himself. The door was slightly ajar, revealing a glimpse of Marcus inside, hunched over a piece of machinery, his hands deftly maneuvering tools with practiced ease. The workshop was a far cry from the luxurious halls Talia had once called home. It was cluttered with parts and half-finished projects, the air thick with the smell of oil and metal. Yet, there was an undeniable efficiency in the chaos, a sense that everything had its place, and Marcus knew exactly where that was. He worked in silence, his focus absolute, as if the world outside his small domain didn't exist. To Talia, this was both a relief and a sharp reminder of how far she had fallen. The contrast between this humble scene and her former life of opulence was stark, but she had no time to dwell on it. Steeling herself, Talia stepped inside. She hadn't planned on what she would say, only that she needed to speak with him. Her heart pounded in her chest, a mix of anxiety and the remnants of pride that still lingered despite her circumstances. She waited for Marcus to notice her, but when he didn't, she cleared her throat. His head lifted, and their eyes met. For a moment, Talia hesitated, the words catching in her throat. This was the man she had once looked down upon, and now she was about to beg him for help. "I need your assistance," she began, her voice more commanding than she felt. Marcus didn't respond immediately, his gaze steady, almost assessing. It was unnerving. The silence stretched on, and Talia realized she had to continue, had to explain herself. I'm willing to offer a partnership of sorts. A marriage. The word hung in the air between them, heavy and awkward. Talia felt a flush of shame rise in her cheeks. She had never imagined herself in this position, reduced to pleading with a human, proposing something so unthinkable. Her pride battled with the desperation that had driven her here, but the latter won out. She forced herself to go on. I have nothing left, she admitted, her voice quieter now. But together we could rebuild. You have skills and I have knowledge. We could find a way to restore what was lost. Marcus continued to watch her, his expression unreadable. Talia felt exposed, vulnerable in a way she had never been before. She had always been in control, always had the upper hand in negotiations. Now, she was at his mercy. Her hands clenched at her sides, nails digging into her palms as she waited for his response, dreading the possibility of rejection. When Marcus finally spoke, his voice was calm, measured. You want to marry me because you have no other options, he said, more a statement than a question. You're desperate. Talia flinched at the bluntness of his words, but she couldn't deny the truth in them. Yes, she replied, forcing herself to meet his gaze. I am. For a moment, Marcus said nothing, simply studying her. Then, to her surprise, he nodded slowly. All right, he said. I'll agree to your proposal. But on one condition. Talia's breath caught. She hadn't expected him to agree so easily. What condition? She asked, wary. I set the terms, Marcus replied. This isn't just about survival for you. It's about something bigger, isn't it? Power, redemption, whatever it is, I want to know what I'm getting into. And I want to make sure I'm not just a pawn in your game. His words sent a chill through Talia. This was not the simple, unassuming mechanics she had expected to manipulate. There was a sharpness in his eyes now, a depth she hadn't anticipated. He wasn't just agreeing to help her, he was taking control of the situation. And in that moment, Talia realized that Marcus Reed was far more than she had given him credit for. Marcus led Talia through a narrow passage hidden behind the clutter of his workshop. The air grew cooler as they descended deeper into the structure, the walls changing from metal to stone, revealing that this place was older than it appeared. Talia noticed a shift in the atmosphere. This was no longer just a mechanic's space. It was something far more significant. The passage opened into a vast underground chamber, dimly lit by a strange, pulsating light emanating from the far end. As they approached, the source of the light became clear, an enormous piece of alien technology, unlike anything Talia had ever seen. The device was sleek and formidable, its design unmistakably Zithri, but with an aura of ancient power. It looked as if it had been dormant for centuries, yet here it was, being meticulously restored by a human. Marcus walked up to the machine, running his hand along its surface with a familiarity that surprised Talia. This was no ordinary project. This was a relic, a weapon of unimaginable power. Marcus's casual demeanor as he worked on it only added to the mystery, as if he had always been meant to find and restore it. This, Marcus said, finally breaking the silence, is what I've been working on. A Zithri superweapon, forgotten by your people, but still very much alive. I found it years ago, buried deep beneath this planet's surface. I've been repairing it ever since. Talia could hardly believe what she was seeing. The Zithri had always prided themselves on their technological superiority, yet here was one of their most powerful creations, lost and abandoned, now in the hands of a human. How did you even know it was here? She asked, her voice tinged with disbelief. Marcus's gaze remained on the machine as he spoke. I was part of a reconnaissance mission, back when I still worked for the Zithri. We were searching for lost artifacts, remnants of the old wars. This was the biggest find, but my superiors decided it was too dangerous to pursue. They thought it was too risky to resurrect something that could potentially destroy entire planets. He turned to face her, his expression serious. But I saw its potential. This weapon isn't just a tool of destruction. It's a symbol of power, a relic that could change the balance of the galaxy. When they abandoned the mission, I stayed behind. They left me for dead, thinking I wouldn't survive on this desolate world. But I did. And I've been working on this ever since. Talia's mind raced as she processed his words. A weapon of this magnitude, in the hands of someone with Marcus's skills and knowledge, could indeed tip the balance of power in the galaxy. But it was more than just a weapon. It was a piece of history, a link to the Zithri's past that they had chosen to forget. And now, it was being brought back to life by a human, a species her people had always dismissed as inferior. She felt a mix of emotions, shock at the revelation, awe at Marcus's resourcefulness, and a growing respect for him that she hadn't anticipated. Marcus was not just a mechanic, he was a strategist, a visionary, someone who saw beyond the immediate and into the possibilities of what could be. Talia realized that she had underestimated him, seeing him only as a means to an end. But now, she began to see him as a partner, someone who could help her achieve far more than just survival. "You've been working on this all alone?" she asked, her voice softer, filled with a new kind of respect. Marcus nodded. "It's taken years, but it's almost ready. With this, we could challenge the Zithri leadership, bring them to their knees, and rebuild something better. But I can't do it alone. That's where you come in." Talia understood the implications of his words. This was no longer just about reclaiming her family's honor. It was about seizing a chance to change the fate of her people. Marcus had the power, and she had the knowledge of Zithri society. Together, they could create something new, something that combined the best of both worlds. "I never imagined a human would hold the key to our future," Talia said, her tone reflective. "But now I see it. This isn't just about me or you. It's about what we can accomplish together." Marcus's lips curled into a slight smile. "Exactly. This is just the beginning, Talia. If we do this right, we're not just restoring power, we're creating a new empire." For the first time, Talia felt a sense of true partnership. Marcus was no longer just a means to an end. He was an equal, someone who could stand beside her as they forged a new path forward. And in that moment, she knew that together, they could achieve the impossible. Marcus sat across from Talia, the dim light of the underground chamber casting shadows over his face. For a moment, he was silent, as if weighing how much to reveal. When he finally spoke, his voice carried a weight that hadn't been there before. "I wasn't always a mechanic," Marcus began, his eyes distant, as if recalling a time long buried. "I was once a spy for the Zithri, tasked with infiltrating and gathering intelligence on potential threats. It was a role I excelled in, not just because of my skills, but because I believed in the Zithri's vision of order and control. But things changed when I discovered something they didn't want me to know." He paused, his expression hardening. "I found out about the superweapon, this very one. It wasn't just another piece of technology. It was a relic from a time when the Zithri ruled with an iron fist, a weapon capable of wiping out entire civilizations. When I reported it, I expected recognition, a reward for my loyalty. Instead, they saw me as a threat, someone who knew too much." Marcus's voice grew colder as he continued. "They betrayed me, Talia. They left me here to die, thinking I wouldn't survive. But they underestimated me. I survived, and I've spent every moment since working on this weapon, not just to restore it, but to use it against those who betrayed me. I want revenge, Talia, revenge on the leaders who abandoned me, who abandoned everything I believed in." Talia listened, her mind racing. Marcus's story added layers of complexity to the man she thought she understood. He wasn't just a mechanic, he was a man driven by a deep, burning grudge. The weapon, which she had seen as a tool for rebuilding, was, for Marcus, a means of exacting revenge. Her instincts told her to be wary, to protect herself from becoming entangled in his vendetta, but another part of her saw the potential in their shared goals. She felt a knot of tension tighten in her chest. Could she trust Marcus, knowing he was motivated by something so personal, so volatile? Or could she turn his desire for revenge to her advantage? The stakes were high, and the line between ally and enemy had never seemed so thin. Talia's mind flickered with doubt, her upbringing urging her to use Marcus's anger as a weapon, to manipulate him as she had been trained to do. But there was another voice, quieter but insistent, that whispered of partnership, of mutual benefit. The decision weighed heavily on her. If she pushed Marcus too far, he could become a dangerous enemy, someone who might turn the superweapon against her if he felt betrayed again. But if she played her cards right, they could achieve something far greater than either could alone. She could feel the tension between them, the unspoken understanding that trust was fragile, and betrayal was always a possibility. After what felt like an eternity, Talia spoke, her voice carefully measured. "I understand your anger, Marcus. The Zithri have a way of discarding those they no longer find useful. But if we're going to succeed, we need to be clear about our intentions. This isn't just about revenge, it's about building something better, something that can stand the test of time. If we're going to do this, we need to trust each other." Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly, as if assessing her words. "Trust is earned, not given," he replied. "But I see the logic in your proposal. We both have something to gain from this alliance. I'm willing to work with you, Talia, but understand this: if you cross me, I won't hesitate to use this weapon for my own ends." Talia nodded, acknowledging the unspoken threat. "And if you cross me, Marcus, you'll find that the Zithri aren't the only ones capable of ruthless efficiency." A tense silence followed, but there was also a sense of mutual respect. Both understood the risks, the dangers of betrayal, yet they also recognized that together, they had a far better chance of achieving their goals. The alliance was fragile, built on a foundation of necessity rather than trust, but it was an alliance nonetheless. "Then it's settled," Marcus said finally, extending his hand. "We work together. We overthrow the corrupt leadership, and we build something new." Talia took his hand, sealing their agreement. "Agreed. Let's make sure they never see it coming." In that moment, they both knew there was no turning back. They were bound together by their shared ambitions, and whether it led to victory or destruction, they would face it as partners. Talia and Marcus worked tirelessly, their plan unfolding with precision. Marcus had spent years restoring the superweapon, but now, with Talia's intimate knowledge of Zithri's systems and protocols, they fine-tuned it to perfection. The weapon wasn't just a blunt instrument of destruction, it was a sophisticated tool capable of striking at the heart of Zithri power. They synchronized its activation with a critical moment, when the Zithri leadership would be most vulnerable, during a gathering of the High Council. On the appointed day, the plan moved into action. Marcus, with his engineering prowess, ensured that the superweapon was deployed with surgical accuracy, targeting the core infrastructure that sustained the corrupt leadership's control. At the same time, Talia orchestrated a series of coordinated strikes from within, leveraging her understanding of Zithri political dynamics. She knew where to hit to cause the most damage, how to exploit the weaknesses in their rigid structure. Together, they unleashed a cascade of events that crippled the Zithri's ability to respond. As the weapon struck, chaos erupted in the Zithri capital. Power grids failed, communication lines went dark, and the once unshakable government found itself paralyzed. Talia's carefully placed allies seized the moment, rising up against the elites who had ruled through fear and intimidation. The very system that had cast her out now crumbled before her eyes, and with Marcus by her side, she pushed forward, determined to see it through to the end. In the heart of the capital, the final confrontation took place. The remaining leaders, desperate and cornered, attempted to rally their forces, but it was too late. Talia and Marcus led the charge, their forces overwhelming the defenses that had once seemed impenetrable. The tension in the air was palpable as they faced down the last of the Zithri elites, the stakes higher than ever. Marcus's calm, methodical approach balanced Talia's fierce resolve, and together, they dismantled the remnants of the old regime. When the dust finally settled, the Zithri leadership lay in ruins, their once mighty empire shattered. Talia stood at the center of it all, her family's disgrace avenged, her people's future reclaimed. But this victory was not just hers, it was theirs. Marcus had proven himself to be more than just a tool or an ally. He was a partner in every sense of the word. With the old regime toppled, Talia and Marcus set about building a new empire, one founded on principles that combined the best of both their worlds. The Zithri's cold logic was tempered by the human capacity for adaptability and innovation. Together, they forged alliances, not only with Earth but with other worlds that had once feared the Zithri. The new empire was not based on domination, but on cooperation, strength balanced by fairness. As the new leaders of this emerging power, Talia and Marcus stood side by side, united in their vision. The alliance between their people grew stronger, with Earth's influence reshaping the once rigid Zithri society. Talia no longer saw Marcus as a lesser being, he had become her equal, her partner in every sense. Their union, once born of desperation, had transformed into something far more powerful, a bond that could shape the future. In the end, they looked out over the rebuilding efforts, a new dawn rising on the horizon. The possibilities were endless, their empire poised to lead the galaxy into a new era of peace and prosperity. And as they faced this new beginning together, they knew that, whatever challenges lay ahead, they would meet them as one. Their journey had been long and fraught with danger, but it had brought them to this moment, a moment of triumph, of mutual respect, and of a future full of promise.